Oh, friends, it's a big day. Yahoo leagues are open. Tongue-tied. I'm tongue-tied. It's a great reason to be tongue-tied, though. So I try to make this light, just slightly less abrasive. Yes, leagues are open. We have our first, what is this schmutz all over my shirt? We have our first look at the Yahoo pre-ranks. Mock drafts are not open yet, by the way. Those I was looking at it last year, and every year I do the same stupid thing where I'm like, oh, yeah, league's open, and then mock draft. It was like 2 weeks later, I think, that mocks were open. So mock's not quite ready yet, but the Yahoo Top 10 is, and that is what we're going to be talking about on today's episode of Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Vespers. Thanks so much for tuning in. For those of you that are just getting back into the swing of things on the fantasy side, welcome to the show. I hope you guys are a first-time listener. You can do yourself a favor by hitting the like button on the video and subscribing to the Old Man Squad, because it's not just going to be my stuff. It's going to be Noah Rubin. It's going to be Adam King. And there are more waiting in the wings that we're ready to roll out for you here on the Old Man Squad YouTube channel. This is the Yahoo Top 10, or that's the first 8 of them, I suppose, would be a more accurate assessment of what's going on. The names on the list: Nikola Jokic, number 1. Giannis Antetokounmpo, number 2. Victor Wembanyama, number 3. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, number 4. Luka Doncic, number 5. Anthony Edwards, number 6. Cade Cunningham, number 7. Anthony Davis, number 8. Karl Anthony Towns, number 9. And Domantas Sabonis is number 10. And the first thing that jumps out at you guys, at least the first thing that jumped out at me, is that Giannis is at number 2. And you may be asking yourself, how does Giannis get up to number 2? This is a guy that in 9 category leagues last year was number 55. And it brings us back to this age-old discussion of what is Giannis? Giannis is the worst weighted free throw shooter in the NBA. But other than that, he's an obscene talent and was number 3 in all of fantasy last year if you were not attempting to win free throw percentage. He jumped from a 5th rounder to number 3. So it's not that surprising to see him at number 2. And we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive on why as we work our way through the first 10 names on the board. This show, of course, is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook. Normally, we talk about season win total numbers, but there isn't really one to talk about. I guess we could do Milwaukee. We're going to be talking about them in a little bit. Milwaukee's season win total at 42.5, which sort of dovetails into the Giannis discussion of, hey, how's this team going to do if Giannis is there, and how are they going to do if he's not? Right now, he's there. So, this brings up sort of what's known as an arbitrage or a hedging. You could take the under on the Bucks right now, and then if Giannis gets traded, you could take the over, and you could probably get like a 15 window gap there. If you think Giannis is there the entire year, though, you don't do that because you probably think they're going to go over 42.5. That's a question for another day because I don't know if Giannis is going to get traded. But let's actually start with Nikola Jokic since he's number 1. We'll just go through these players one by one. Here is Jokic. Here are his numbers from last season. They were wild, just wild. Jokic, from a 9-cat standpoint, runaway per game champion. Shai passes him by totals because of 6 extra basketball games. Jokic, 29.5 points per game last year, which, again, we didn't really think of him as the scoring type, but that was 3rd in the NBA in points per game. He hit 2 3-pointers a night, which was also pretty impressive. He was 3rd in the NBA in rebounds per game. He was 2nd in the NBA in assists per game. He was top 6 in steals per game last year. Yeah, I know. It's absolutely wild. He was number 2 in the NBA in weighted field goal percent impact because he shot 58% on 28 shots per game. He wasn't about to catch Giannis. But like when you think about Jared Allen shooting 71%, he only took 8 of them. So Jokic actually had a larger positive impact at a lower field goal percent. Yes, he only shot 80% at the free throw line. What are you going to do? But by all accounts, it's one of the greatest fantasy seasons of all time. And I don't think we really talked about it that much. Jokic was my number one going into last year. I see no reason to change that. Wemby, we assume he's going to get better year over year over year, and we'll talk about him in a couple of picks here. But Jokic clubbed him, and Wemby's value is so heavily tied into one hyper elite category, also pretty good at rebounding. I don't want to take that away from Victor, that it makes him not harder to build around, because in head-to-head leagues, you just, you build yourself into a punt field goal percent team with a massive start in blocks. But with Jokic, he has a big positive in points, boards, assists, steals, field goal percent. Like, you're on your way. Jokic alone is putting you in the driver's seat in 5 categories. I don't know that there's anybody else that was even close to that big of a positive in 5 different categories. Wemby had one crazy, amazing one very, very good one in rebounds, and then threes and points were like solid. Who's the next one on the like? Oftentimes it's Luka, who would points, threes, boards, assists, steals, but the rebounds were not that great at 8. So he's like 4 and change, but also he has some negatives. There's just no one out there like Nikola Jokic when you're building a team. And so that's why I'm still starting with Jokic. He makes your life so simple the rest of the way. Don't overthink it. Don't get into this like, well, what if Wemby takes a step forward? Even if Wemby takes a step forward and catches Jokic in like per game overall value, it's largely going to be still on the shoulders of that one runaway category. And again, this is not meant to knock Victor Wembanyama because he's insane. But if you remove blocks, which was Wemby's best category, he falls to an end of first round value. If you remove assists, which was Jokic's best category, he's still number 3. He's still like a runaway number 3. There really isn't anybody all that close to him. And I know that doesn't sound like that big of a difference, but it is. The end of the first round compared to the top of the first round. End of first rounders were like a third of the value of top of the first round guys. And so, not that you don't want to take Wemby in the top 3 or 4 picks, I just don't think you take him number 1. Because even if his overall ranking does pass Jokic per game this year, which I don't think it will, but it might, it's still, he's not a specialist because he's way better than that. But there is a little bit of that sort of like twinge of specialist thing going on. So Jokic is my number 1. Giannis is probably not my number 2, but that's mostly because I don't like, if you have a pick at the very tippy top of the board, I don't like jamming yourself into a punt build right out of the gate. And with Wemby, you don't have to punt field goal percent. It makes sense to do so because he's a center that's not helping you in that category, but he's not decimating you in that category the way that Giannis is in free throws. It's a different beast. With Victor, it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess my life gets a little bit easier in a head-to-head format if I'm like, look, I got this big man who gives me all these incredible big man stats, but not field goal percent. Okay, great. I can build a bunch of guards around that and just get like one more shot blocker mixed in there. I don't even care if that guy's good at field goal percent. And bingo bango, I've got a team that's good in enough categories to win it head-to-head. Where with Giannis, but the flip side, of course, with Wemby is if you take a couple of good field goal percent guys, like if you draft a good field goal percent guard in the 3rd round or 4th round or something, you can kind of cancel that out. Like you just don't draft a bad field goal percent team and you'll be fine. With Giannis, it's a different monster. And we're talking about Antetokounmpo now, and we'll mention his stats from last year in a little bit. Giannis, you quite literally need 3 to 4 excellent foul shooters to cancel out just to get back to like break even in free throw percent. And the problem is the guys that can do that sort of positive work in free throws are probably going to be off the board before any pick gets back to you. The best free throw percent by volume guys last year were Shai, Dame, Embiid, although he didn't play very much, Book, Steph, Trae Young, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, obviously out for a while. Cam Thomas, okay, well, I guess there's one. Tyrese Maxey, and now you're into the guys that are doing some pretty good damage, but not like what you'd need to cancel out the weighted situation of what Giannis has got going on. So of the names that could actually bring you somewhat back towards the midpoint, the only one we just mentioned that's probably not going to be gone before your second round pick, if you took Giannis at number 2, is Cam Thomas. And you would literally need 4 Cam Thomases to cancel out what Giannis is doing, to get you back to like a 50-50 proposition to win free throw in a given week. So yeah, it can be done if you go, let's say, Tyrese Maxey's ranked pretty high. He might not even get back to you. Let's say you go Austin Reeves in the 5th, and you go Trey Murphy probably in the 4th, Cam Johnson in the 6th or 7th, Jordan Poole somewhere in there, and I don't know, Jimmy Butler. No, you're not going to be able to get him. Maybe, oh, geez, this is a hard exercise to do. Maybe Emmanuel Quickly, take a shot there in like the 8th. That would, if you did all of those guys and didn't draft a center, now you're competitive in free throw shooting again. But so here's the other thing that's going on with this Giannis discussion. First of all, Giannis was amazing last year. He had 30.5 points, 12 boards, 6.5 assists. He was awesome. There's like, to say anything otherwise is insane. Giannis is an unreal basketball player and fantasy talent. He was also at 2.1 combined defensive stats, the best field goal percent impact player in the NBA, but also the worst free throw number. Does not hit a three-pointer. Okay, you can deal with that as you see fit. The other thing that's going on here, shout out to my buddy Dan Titus over at Yahoo Sports, is that Yahoo changed the default setting in their public prize leagues to be points format in an effort to try to bring more football fantasy folks over. Here, we're going to like ease you in a little bit before we hit you with the 9 category stuff, because we'll give you points leagues, and then as you get tired of that, you can transition over. Because more leagues for Yahoo are going to be points league based, and because anybody who's playing category leagues that drafts Giannis early should probably be punting free throws, that's why he's as high as he is. I'm just not going to take him there because I don't really like the punt free throw build to begin with. I think it's one of the easier categories to be good at if you just like avoid the mega punt free throw guys, and it gives you this weird advantage because you kind of flip the board on everybody else who's not paying attention to these categories as much. I just think you sort of, square hole yourself right out of the gate, and which again, it's not impossible if you're very good at it and you get a lot of square pegs. Awesome. But if you don't get the square pegs you need, and you don't get the perfect punt free throw fits the rest of the way, and those guys do or don't stay healthy, you make your life just a little bit harder. So no Giannis for me at number 2. He's a mid-first rounder, in my opinion, not because he's a mid-first rounder, because when you're punting free throw, he probably will be a top 3 guy this year. Maybe better if he's all alone in Milwaukee. It's just that there are guys, I believe, that don't make your life as complicated that you can still take. And one of them is Victor Wembanyama, who's number 3 on the Yahoo board and belongs probably at number 3, although I would potentially put Shai ahead of him because you guys know I'm more of a straight 9-cap player, and I like to sort of kick the can down the road on team build as long as I can. Victor, very, very good basketball player. Really fun. 24, 11, and 4. A steal, almost 4 blocks, 3 threes a game. Field goal percent, not great at 47.5. Free throw, fixed it, got it up into a nice positive at 83.5. Doesn't take as many as you'd want from a guy who's 9.5 feet tall. But, maybe we'll get there as time passes. Coming off the blood clot does concern me a little bit. I know there's a lot of folks out there that aren't particularly concerned about the Wemby blood clot, and that's fine. They're probably right. Like odds are 95% or better that it doesn't pop back up this year. It seems extremely unlikely. Probably 98% or better that it does not recur this season. I don't know about the rest of his career, but I don't think they're going to trot him out there unless he's healthy, because blood clot stuff is very serious. So the debate for me here is, do I go Wemby or do I go Shai Gilgeous-Alexander next? And I think it might be format dependent. I might go Shai in a 9-cat roto league because you get the points, you get decent enough rebounds, assists, and threes. You get great steals, solid blocks out of a guard. You get a big-time positive in both percentage categories and relatively low turnovers from Shai, who, by the way, is the next player we're going to talk about on this thing. So we can kind of combine them into one discussion, I guess. With Victor, you get not as many points. Not that he's a punt points player, because like the 28 to 30 point per game guys are few and far between, but he doesn't really give you he doesn't give you a head start in that category, where he does in rebounds and blocks. That's the head start categories for Victor at the beginning of the first round. So head to head, okay, you lean into points, threes, boards, assists, blocks, free throws. That's 6. And then if you want to add steals into the mix, you can make that your 7th. You probably look at punting, field goal percent, turnovers. You can sort of soft punt, which is more of the like, meh, I'm not really paying attention to it. Field goal is more of the like, I don't want to say active avoid, but you're gonna position yourself to go get some guards first to build around Wemby before you lean back into some of the other center categories. Where again with Shai, you can kind of get whatever you want in the second round because you've got that head start in a bunch of stuff. Your choice you're making with Shai, and I'll flash his picture up on the screen for those watching on YouTube. The choice you're making with Shai is, do I want to attack assists or rebounds next? Because you're in great shape in almost everything else, not so much three-pointers, but you're making a decision on what your team build is for head-to-head with your second and third round picks. With Roto, you're going to want to do one of each. You want to make sure that you get a solid assist guy, probably in the second round, solid rebound guy, probably in the third round. And you hope that whatever those guys bring to the table will keep you at an okay spot in the stuff that Shai was already really good at. If you're looking more on the, okay, how do I build a team that I can try to attack 7 categories-ish, you're looking at who's left on the board at the end of the second round. And I don't actually have the answer to that question yet because I haven't done a whole bunch of mocks. And, we're going to look at the Yahoo Rank Board soon. But the guys near the end of the second round on pre-ranks are the Jalen Williams, Jalen Johnson, Jalen Brunson, De'Aaron Fox, LeBron James, Jaylen Brown, another Jalen, just spelled different, Evan Mobley, Alperen Şengün, Scotty Barnes. These are some of the names you're seeing sort of mid to end of second round. So, like, if you took Shai and you wanted to lean more into the big man type build, you could go Evan Mobley. If you took Shai and you wanted to lean into the all-around build, maybe you go LeBron, whose weakness, you'd argue, is turnovers and a little bit free throws. But Shai's so good at that, the negative that LeBron brings to the table in foul shooting isn't even close to the positive that Shai gives you there. Who else are you looking at here? I mean, we'll do a show on pairings at some point down the line. We'll probably do a bunch of them, actually, as Yahoo's board keeps shifting. But I just like that Shai gives you a bunch of choices there. Like almost any of these guys, if you pick them up with Shai, you can figure out a way to build a team around that. Jalen Johnson, you're looking more well-rounded. Jalen Brunson, maybe now you're looking at punting rebounds if you lean more into the not much rebounding guard type build, but great percentages with that team. I don't like Brunson there. That's way too high for him, but you guys get the idea. Almost anybody you take in the second round, you can figure out a way to put them with Shai. Whereas with Wemby, you can figure it out, but it's a little bit more finicky. Number 5 on the Yahoo board is Luka Doncic. Slim Luka. We've seen a lot of pictures. Normally, I don't really put much stock into that, but he's a lot lighter. Luka's a lot lighter. And I'm hoping, I don't know that that's going to change his offensive output all that much. I'm hoping that it improves his field goal percent because when you're a little lighter, you can finish around the rim a little bit better. More than anything, I hope that it helps his health over the course of the year. He missed 32 games this last season. That's too many. But I also can't make really almost any argument to go a different direction at this spot once you've gotten past these first few names. Even Giannis is a question mark because with Luka, again, you don't have to punt anything. The easiest thing to punt with Luka would be turnovers, but I don't think that you have to. Free throw was up at 78 last year. Like, that's probably the next one you'd look at because he's a guard that's hurting you a little bit in free throws. I think the field goal percent probably is better this coming season. Last year was a down season shooting for Luka, mostly because of his time with the Lakers, where he couldn't put a stone in the ocean from the field at just 43.8%. Career, he's closer to 47. Last couple of years in Dallas, he was higher than that. But, I mean, the free throw thing has always been a little bit problematic. It's just not as bad as it used to be. So I would look at Luka and assume that his counting stats stay somewhat similar. I would hope that his field goal percent comes back a little bit. I hope the games played comes back a little bit. Even if that puts him at like 7th per game, because of how many team builds he offers you, he is the next most obvious choice here. Because Giannis, in my mind, is the other guy you're considering at this spot before you get into the guys that have no real shot to be first rounders per game, but have other upside notes built into them. You'll see who that's going to be. So Luka, much like Nikola Jokic, has the points, has the rebounds, not quite as good, but he's a guard. The assists, I'd like them to be a little bit higher, but they are what they are. Good steals. I expect the field goal percent to be better and good for a guard. Threes is also an area of big time gain for Luka. He gives you a lot of options, particularly again on the head-to-head side, because turnovers are rough. Free throw percent is going to be something you'll have to kind of paper over a bit if you're playing Roto straight 9 cat. But you can't, like, what are you going to say? Skinny Luka, it's going to be a fun year, and he's got to go next. He's got to go next. Number 6 on the Yahoo board is Anthony Edwards, and I would have taken this and I would have pooped all over it last year. But this season, with the amount of injuries you've got going into the year, I'm putting more stock than usual in player health. And Anthony Edwards, God love him, he's probably not a first rounder per game, but damn if he ain't arguably the most durable player in the NBA. And I know that Mikal Bridges plays in every single ball game, but also Mikal Bridges doesn't sustain the beating that Anthony Edwards does night to night. Ant-Man played in all 72 games his rookie year. That was the purposefully shortened COVID season. He did miss 10 his second season in the NBA, and every year since then, he's missed exactly 3 basketball games each year. So we're talking about 9 missed games over the last 3 seasons combined. His minute total, like YouTubers can see it on their screen, his total minutes played number is extraordinarily high. And maybe that does catch up with him someday, but he has that LeBron body build that can take a little bit more of a beating. He's sturdier than most of the other guys that he's playing against, and he'll play through stuff more than the other guys he's playing against. And that'll probably catch up with you someday. But also, you know, it's not like when Karl Anthony Towns was playing through everything and he's a lumbering ox of a man. Anthony Edwards is like 6'5". His body is not woolly mammoth size. Now, to Anthony's credit, he's more than just durability. He was a second rounder per game last year, 27.5 points. He hit 4 3-pointers a game, which was freaking crazy. 5.7 rebounds, 4.5 assists. Those are both fine, but not great. 1.2 steals, 0.6 blocks. Also decent, but not great. Low field goal percent. Fixed the free throw number, so that at least is something. And then turnovers are not great, but like first rounders, meh. 3 and a little is not going to break you. I look at this, and last year, what I struggled with Anthony Edwards was trying to figure out what area he was going to make his massive gain in. Now, he stuffed that in my face by completely revamping his shot profile to include basically 50% three-pointers. He was jacking away from downtown, and it went well for him. He hit almost 40% of his threes. But that also worries me a little bit because he was a 36% three-point shooter coming into last year. And that's not to say that he's definitely going to come back down. I'm just worried that he might. His two-point percentage really didn't change all that much. He's been right around 50, 51, 52% throughout his career. But his effective field goal percent this last year was way better because his three-point percent was way better. So his 10 three-point attempts a game, he was turning that into 12 points per game. His 10 two-point attempts per game, he was turning into 10. And then he hit 5 and change free throws. So that's how you get to that mark. Like the previous year, he was only hitting 35.5% of his threes. He was only taking 6.7 of them. A lot of two-pointers. Yeah, he made a few more of them. But if you can make 40% of your threes, you guys can do the math on this. Threes are worth, what, 50% more than twos. So 40% from 3 would be like shooting 60% from 2. Blah, 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 blah. When you're good from downtown, you want to take a lot of them. And he did. So he stuffed it in my face. He found a category he could get better at where I was like, I don't know what the hell this guy's going to do to get better. He's already taking 20 shots a game. Well, he just changed what shot they were. I am once again at an impasse in figuring out what the hell Anthony Edwards can get better at this coming season. My hope would be that he can improve his two-point field goal percent. But at the same time, he's already fine there. I don't think it's going to change that much. He's still the guy that's going to have to crack off the bad shot at the end of the shot clock. So, like, I think we're probably seeing Max Ant-Man unless he has a burst in steals, which is more random fluctuation than anything he's doing on his own. Because he did have a season where he was at 1.6. This last year, he was down at 1.2. Minutes have been basically the same over that stretch. So maybe if everything stays the same and the steals go from 1.2 to 1.5, that's how he could move up the board a little bit more. Still, I think he's doing more than enough. As a early to mid second rounder, he's number 16 last year with intense durability. This is around where he should probably go. I don't know that he's the guy I take here as opposed to maybe like 2 to 3 slots deeper, at least when you hear the other names that I'm about to talk about in a second. But it's very much not crazy to see Anthony Edwards at this spot. What are we at? 7? Number 7, Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham, number 7. This one surprises me, not because Cade is at 7, but because Harden isn't. And I've talked about this on the show a number of times. I thought that Cade Cunningham and James Harden were damn near the same fantasy player last year. Cade, better from the field. That was the big gap between the two of them. The other stuff was real close. They were separated by 3 points, 1 three-pointer, basically no rebounds, no assists. Harden by half a steal. Harden wins free throws, Cade wins field goal. Both guys very high turnovers. Both guys, when you're punting turnovers, were mid-first rounders. So that's what's surprising me. Not that Cade is there, because Cade was number 11 in a punt in 8 category last year. Harden was number 6, by the way. And I think it's probably just an age thing, even though James played 9 more games than Cade did last season. This rank is totally fine for Cade. He made his leap last season, the one that we've been waiting for. Honestly, it was sort of like the perfect time because he had played a good chunk of the prior season on a really, really, really bad team. And you could see that his heart wasn't in it. And then this year, you got like Cade plus heart. He's a free throw helper. He's turned his field goal situation into only a small negative. The assist being over 9 helps because the turnovers are crazy high. The rebounds are really good for someone who's going to be occupying your point guard spot. Steals and blocks are fine. I like the blocks. The steals are like slightly sub what you'd want, but I think that's kind of what he is. And again, we can play the game of like, is there a way that Cade gets better? And the way is probably that he gets better at shooting 3-pointers because has not been a great 3-point shooter throughout his career so far. Is that a thing that he can fix year over year? I think you're putting a lot of eggs in that basket to say, oh yeah, well, this is the next thing. I think it is the next thing. I just don't know when it's going to get better. Might be now, might be 3 years from now, might be 6 years from now. Might be never. So I think if you're drafting Cade, you're probably just banking on a repeat from last year. 26, 6, and 9, 47, 85 splits, crazy bad turnovers, 8 cat first rounder, 9 cat third rounder because of the turnovers. But again, when you're talking about head-to-head build type of guys, he's fine in that spot because you can build around points, boards, yes, because your point guard's getting you 6 rebounds, points, boards, assists, free throw percent, points, boards, assists, that's 4, and then you just got to find one more thing. Which, I mean, that's kind of what you have to do when you have a pick towards the back end of the first round. Pick the next thing. Probably blocks. If you're getting about a block out of your point guard, you can get a couple of big men and you can be pretty competitive there. You're going to have trouble beating the Wemby team, but it's doable. Maybe threes. He's not a great three-point shooter, but you could shore that up in the next round or two. Could be field goal percent because he's not that bad there. You're probably going to want a couple of those because you're going to run into teams that are better than you in one out of the two, and you're going to need to have sort of the backup plan. Number 8. I'm starting to run out of voice here. The show is taking longer than expected. Number 8 on the Yahoo board is Anthony Davis of the Dallas Mavericks, who, by the way, have a FanDuel regular season win total of 40.5. That's not that high. Western Conference is hard, though. I think the Mavs are going to be in a weird spot while Kyrie's out. I don't know how good they're going to be. They're kind of a mismatched bunch of goobers on that club. I would probably lean towards the under on that Mavs number. I got to remember I did this around 31 minutes. How do I remember when I do ad reads in a show? Somewhere in the 31s, everybody. So FanDuel's got it at 40.5, and they know that people are going to come in on the over. I think there's value on the other side. Oh, my voice. I've been too excited. I'm too excited about the fact that leagues are open. Anthony Davis coming off a 24.7. Let's be specific here. Dan, you can be specific. 24.7, 11.6, 3.5 assists, great defensive stats, 1.2 steals, 2.2 blocks, 51.5 from the field, 77.5 at the free throw line on a lot of attempts per game. He is the clear number 1 in Dallas until Kyrie comes back. His numbers in Dallas don't reflect that because he came back too soon, had a monster 3 quarters before re-injuring himself, and then they kid-gloved him down the stretch. So he played only 29.5 minutes during his time with the Mavericks, took only 1 less shot than he did in 34 minutes with the Lakers. So again, you're just sort of running the usage rate stuff on that. If he plays 34, 35 minutes a game in Dallas, I think you can expect him to get probably up near 19 shots per game. That's great. He's going to be in the 3s in defensive stats. He's going to be in the 11s in rebounds. He might even be higher in assists, but he's also built out of peanut brittle. So once again, we have the same discussion we always have, which is where does the risk outweigh the reward and vice versa on someone as fantasy amazing as Anthony Davis. I think AD, he was number 4 player in fantasy this year. I feel like he has almost a cakewalk to that number 4 per game spot in 9 category leagues this season because he's going to do more than he did last year. But he played only 51 games last year, and we've seen the story over the years. AD rarely ever has 2 consecutive healthy seasons. He did back with New Orleans almost a full decade ago. But since then, it's basically been like healthy, unhealthy, 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 healthy, unhealthy. Like they pop up every once in a while when the time is right. Which one are you going to get this year? Man, I mean, he's coming off an unhealthy year. So maybe that means that we're more likely to get slightly better health. But dudes and dudettes and in-betweens, if we've learned anything, I mean, like half of my lessons learned from this past year were you got to go safe when you can early. And Anthony Davis is not safe. Games cap roto by the end of the first round, you've got no choice. You've got to take him there because end of the first round, if you can get a guy who's an early first rounder, you simply must do it. You must do it. But there are still other guys on the board that have shown, and this is a low bar, but significantly better durability than Anthony Davis. That could be like second rounders with durability upside that were far better than AD by totals this last year. That's the thing. Like, totals can tell you lies when you're talking about guys that are ranked around like 150 that play in all 82 games and their totals rank is 95. So it's like, oh, this guy probably should have been on a roster. No. But first and second rounders, their totals very much matter because every game they play is a big positive for your fantasy team. So think about it from this standpoint. Devin Booker. Can we all agree he wasn't that good last year? I don't think he was that good last year. 25.5 points, 4 boards, 7 assists, under a steal, 46% from... Like, it wasn't a very good season for Booker. He was a third rounder per game. Way behind Anthony Davis in per game ranking. But you know damn well who won the who was more valuable last year by totals battle. It was Booker by 2 full rounds. Because he played 24 more games. Can we go into this season assuming AD is going to miss 30 games? No, you definitely can't. But would I take Booker over him? I might. I really might. Again, it might be league dependent, but it's tough. AD at 8 makes a lot of sense because of the upside, but also, man, that's risky. Karl-Anthony Towns is number 9 on the Yahoo board as we get towards the final 2 names on today's show. And Cat is, he was number 4 by totals last year. He was just behind that on a per game basis. He was number 6. There's no Tyrese Halliburton, so you can artificially move him up to number 5. But, and a big old but, Karl-Anthony Towns was 2 very different players in the first and second half last year. First half of the season, juggernaut. Absolute juggernaut. Second half of the season, fine. He was a third rounder after the All-Star break. What changed for Cat during that drop-off from basically, he was like a top 3 fantasy play for a long stretch last year. What changed? He scored less. His shot profile got worse. He rebounded less. And that turns you, like, my voice didn't do what I wanted it to do, and rebounded less. And basically what happened is that he stopped being a center. The Knicks ran a much more, this is this sort of remedial version of it, but if you read a lot of the Knicks beat reports and beat blogs and things like that, the main thing that they point to, and I didn't go back and watch 1,000 minutes of Knicks footage to verify this, was that teams changed the way they defended Josh Hart. That they abandoned him to load up on everybody else, and that forced Cat to sit at the perimeter because they needed to create space. When teams had to guard Josh Hart, who was standing in the corner, that created room for Cat to get a little closer to the bucket. It allowed Jalen Brunson to get closer to the bucket. It allowed he and those 2 guys to operate together. But when they were ignoring Josh Hart, Cat couldn't get to the rim. So he went from shooting first half of the season like 55, 56%. Second half of the season, he was down at 50, which isn't bad necessarily. 50% is fine, but he just moved away from the hoop. His rebounds went down by 1.5. His scoring went down by 1.5, 2 points per game. And his field goal percent dropped by about 5. And I don't think it was coincidence. So are you going to get the high first round Cat? Do the Knicks solve this puzzle with a new coaching staff in place? Or are teams going to keep doing it? Keep loading up on Brunson and Cat and say, look, we're not going to give you the good looks. You got to take crummier looks. And to Cat's credit, he's still an amazing enough offensive player that he makes a lot of them. But can we bank on the change back? I think Cat is likely to have a little bit of a regression this year. So, end of the first round still seems fine for him, but I'm not that excited about it, if that makes any sense. Would I take Cat over AD? Man, that's a tough one, actually. Because Cat had a bunch of seasons of poor durability before this past one. Two seasons of poor durability. But also like 4 out of 5. And he had all the COVID family stuff, so we can't really hold that over him. But is the mostly healthy Cat we got this year, is that going to get it done? Or is he going to go back to playing 60-something games? Hard to know. Impossible, frankly, to know. Impossible. I think I probably go AD ahead of Cat, which seems stupid and insane after where they ended up last year. But it's hard for me to take Cat, who I think is probably going to be a second rounder per game this season, who might also be hurt, over Anthony Davis, who's probably going to be top 4, even if we kind of know he's going to be hurt. And your number 10 guy is an even more interesting dilemma. And maybe some of this is the points league factor at work, but Domantas Sabonis is in that 10 slot. And much like Karl Anthony Towns, Sabonis, okay, so, his wasn't as severe. I think Sabonis actually was more the flip-flop. He started slower and then got better as the year went on. No, I had it right. So Sabonis got off to a really good free throw shooting start, and that kind of tapered off as the season wound down. Admittedly, the Kings were trying to fit a bunch of different pieces together, and so there were mismatched parts. But Sabonis was a 5th rounder the second half of last year. 5th. He was number 54. 17.5 points, 13.5 rebounds, and 6 assists. Those numbers are still solid enough. But when you're looking at what you were hoping for out of him, well, you can look at the overall season numbers, and they tell the story too. The minutes, the field goal percent, the field goal volume, all of that, the free throws, or the rebounds, all of that was basically the same for Sabonis year over year. The thing that changed was assists. Down a bunch. Down the stretch, too. If you're like, oh, well, De'Aaron Fox got traded and then maybe the assists got better. No, there was more Zach LaVine. There was more Malik Monk. There was just other initiators after Sabonis had that crazy, 2014-8 season the year before. He really did taper off this year, and I don't think people really noticed it. I love the fact that he plays. He missed a dozen games last year, and that was a ton for him to miss. He played every game the year before. He missed 3 the season before that. He plays. But are we talking about a guy who's still a second rounder? Is he going to be at 19, 14, and 7? Or is it going to be 17, 13, and 6 with the poor free throw percent? I don't, Sabonis at the end of the first round is a dicey proposition. To me, he's like your prototypical second rounder. But with players missing, I sort of get it. I just again, I'm looking back at the board here, and you've still got Booker, you still got Harden available. And honestly, that's probably it. And then if you want to go with the wonky team build, you've still got Trae Young out there. I feel like you almost have to take those guys ahead of Sabonis. But then, what's that, 10, 11, 12? That puts Sabonis as basically the first pick of the second round. So your hair splitting a little bit here, since if you have pick 11, you also have pick 14, and 12 and 13 go together. So who cares if you flip-flop what order you take these guys in? But Sabonis, don't be surprised if Domantas Sabonis is like a late second, early third per game this year, and you need him to get to 75 games played to get you to that final mark. Let's go back to the main Yahoo tab so you can see the names again. Jokic, Giannis, Wemby, Shai, Luka, Ant. That's the first 6. I don't know why I went 6. We're only doing 10 on today's show. Cade, Anthony Davis, Karl Anthony Towns, and Domantas Sabonis. That's your top 10 on the first Yahoo board. Thanks for bearing with us. This show went longer than expected. I am Dan Vespers. You got to subscribe if you made it this far. Them's the rules to the Old Man Squad here on YouTube. So much draft content on the way. There has also been a request for me to finish up the team previews. I think we still have 7 of those left. I will try to wedge them in. Perhaps it will be a weekend endeavor. I'm going to do my best here. There are days where I have more childcare help than others, but the kids are in school right now, so you got yourself a 45-minute show on only 10 players. my voice is tired. I'm going to go do something else that doesn't involve talking. I'm Dan Vespers at Dan Vespers on social media. I got to start doing all the old promo stuff again because new people are going to find the shows. At Dan Vespers on social media, DanBesbris. At Old Man Squad is the network feed. So if you want to see everything that's coming out from our fantasy division here at Old Man Squad, that's the place to find it. Please drop a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. Hit that like button on YouTube. Subscribe however you're taking in the content. And we'll see you guys again with another show soon. It might not even be tomorrow. It might be later today. I don't know. Maybe we'll go to Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't know if there'll be time. See you guys soon.